Assalamu alaikum. Good day. Welcome back to the class. This is lecture number 26, and we've amazingly gone through a wonderful array of different categories and topics about the investment process and investment analysis. We've almost done the better part of investments. जो चीज़ें रह गई हैं उसको अब हम लेके आगे चलेंगे, और हमने प्रीवियस लेक्चर में बात की थी एक तो बिहेवियर की, बिहेवियरल फाइनेंस की, और उससे पहले हमने एफिशिएंट मार्केट हाइपोथेसिस की बात की थी, और हमने बात की थी इंडेक्सेस की. तो वी हैड टॉक्ड व्हाट इंडेक्स वाज. तो इंडेक्स एक बेंचमार्क होता है. इंडेक्स एक ऐसी एबिलिटी है जिससे आप एवेल्युएट कर सकते हैं एक कैपिटल मार्केट की परफॉर्मेंस की. बहुत सारे इंडेक्सेस हैं, सो टू चूज व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ एन इंडेक्स यू नीड, you must find out what indices is all about, and that is what we talked in the previous. The important thing is not to mix up indices. So a stock market index should not be checked with the bond market evaluation. अगर आप bonds में काम करें तो stock market का index आपको काम नहीं देगा, और अगर आप large capitalized companies में काम कर रहे हैं as a portfolio, so small capitalized companies ka index will again be misleading to you. So it is important for you to understand which index to choose from. So there are hundreds of indices, thousands of them. Obviously, each market has its own index, but the most known index in the world in the equity markets is the DJIA. Ji haan, DJIA, which stands for, remember we talked about this in the previous lecture, the Dow Jones Industrial Averages. ये सबसे commonly known index है. इसके साथ हमने बात की थी the S&P 500 index, which is an abbreviation for the Standard and Poor 500. और हमने बात की थी कि इसमें 500 कंपनीज हैं, इंडस्ट्रियलाइज्ड कंपनीज, जो इस इंडेक्स का हिस्सा है. इसके अलावा हमारे पास और भी इंडेक्सेस थे. हमारे पास इंटरनेशनल एक्सचेंजेस में इंडेक्सेस थे, जैसे इंग्लैंड की मार्केट है उसमें हमारे पास फुटसी है, द फाइनेंशियल टाइम्स स्टॉक एक्सचेंज इंडेक्स. सो इक्विटी मार्केट इंडिकेटर्स हैं. इक्विटी मार्केट इंडिकेटर्स प्रोवाइड हाउ द स्टॉक एक्सचेंज इज परफॉर्मिंग. ये भी बताती हैं whether the market is going up or going down on any given day. So we talked about the Dow Jones Industrial Averages, और मैंने बताया कि Dow Jones Industrial Average जो है, it is composed of 30 of the blue chip companies, 30 companies, और 30 companies ये वो companies हैं जो best of the best हैं, 30 blue chip stocks. Now, these are price weighted indices. और price weighted indices में हम essentially we look at the prices of these 30 stocks divided by 30. जमा कर लिया 30 स्टॉक्स की प्राइसेस को और उसको डिवाइड कर दिया 30 पे, एंड देन वी गेट अ फिगर. दिस चेंजेस एवरी डे. दूसरी मैंने आपसे बात की थी अबाउट द स्टैंडर्ड एंड पुअर्स कंपोजिट इंडेक्स. इसके अंदर 500 लार्ज फर्म्स हैं, एंड देन वी टॉक अबाउट वैल्यूज अबाउट दीज इंडेक्सेस. वैल्यू वेटेड इंडेक्स, इसमें हम वैल्यू लेते हैं, प्राइसेस and shares outstanding are focused on this. So this indicates how much the average of 500 companies has gone up or gone down in relationship to the index. At any given period, we look at the movement of the index, whether it's going up or down based on these values of the 500 companies. तो ये तो हो गया आपका S&P 500 इंडेक्स, जो एक वैल्यूएटेड इंडेक्स. इसके अलावा हमारे पास न्यूयॉर्क स्टॉक एक्सचेंज, NYSE, एंड नेशनल एसोसिएशन ऑफ स्टॉक डीलर्स ऑटोमेटेड कोटेशन की भी कॉम्पोजिट इंडेक्स है. ये वैल्यूएटेड इंडेक्सेस हैं ऑफ द ब्रॉड मार्केट. You can have price weighted, you can have value weighted, you can have capitalized weighted. ये बहुत सारी, even volume weighted. लास्ट में मैंने आपको जापानीज टोक्यो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज के इंडेक्स की बात की, तो निक्काई एवरेज, बट इसका एग्जैक्ट जो वर्ड है दैट्स द निक्काई 225 average index. This composes price-weighted index of 225 largely traded, actively traded companies at the Tokyo Stock Exchange, the Nikkei 225 index. Now, while we were talking about indices, what index to choose from, we must know how indices are constructed. Bante kaise hain? What are the ingredients of making a good index or an index that's good to you? So, price weighted index होता है और इसमें हम price assign करते हैं to the heavyweights, to bigger prices stocks, to high price stocks. This would be included in the price weighted index, and we make sure that we use a divisor to adjust for stock splits. ये आपका प्राइस वेटेड इंडेक्स हो जाएगा, जिसमें ज्यादा वेटेज आप ज्यादा हाईली प्राइस स्टॉक्स को देते हैं, और ये आप यूज करते हैं टू गेज द मार्केट, टू evaluate the market, to see how the market is performing based on this particular variety of index. Another way to look at the index or construct an index is the capitalization weighting index. Capitalize के ऊपर, market capitalizer considers what? Size of the company, कितनी बड़ी company. The bigger the company, more important weightage, bigger the weightage in the index. ये market capitalizer. But these must be adjusted for any announcements. जाहिर है जो भी announcement आएगी तो capitalization बढ़ेगा, especially when you give out bonus stock dividends. तो इसमें आपकी मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन बढ़ जाएगी. अगर आपने राइट शेयर्स इशू किए हैं तब भी मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन बढ़ेगी, या स्टॉक स्प्लिट्स के लिए या बोनसेस के लिए या राइट शेयर्स के लिए आपको कम या ज्यादा एडजस्टमेंट्स करनी पड़ेगी मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन. हमारे यहाँ जो बेंचमार्क है वो कराची स्टॉक एक्सचेंज की 100 इंडेक्स का है. इट इज कॉल्ड KSE 100 index. And this is obviously used as an index based on 100 companies, which represents 80% of the total market. अब इसके अंदर sectors हैं, and to be precise, 34 sectors, and we take the highest capitalized company from each sector. So while we are at it, इस 100 में 34 representative companies होंगी each sector की, और जो बाकी 66 कंपनीज हैं वो हम मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन के हिसाब से वी विल यूज देम इन डिसेंडिंग ऑर्डर. सो यू विल हैव 66 कंपनीज फ्रॉम मार्केट कैपिटलाइजेशन एंड यू शैल हैव 34 कंपनीज representing your sectors, 34 sectoral representatives and 66 companies based on the market capitalization. लाहौर में हमारे पास LSE 25 इंडेक्स है, इस्लामाबाद में ISE 10, बट लाहौर स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का इंडेक्स जो है LSE 25 is based on 25 actively traded companies. मतलब लाहौर स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का इंडेक्स वॉल्यूम वेटेड है, कराची स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का इंडेक्स कैपिटलाइज वेटेड है. सो आई हैव ऑलरेडी गिवन यू 2 local examples of different construction varieties of indices. Now, जब हमने बहुत सारी बातें की, हमने इंडेक्स की बातें की, हमने एफिशिएंट मार्केट हाइपोथेसिस की बातें की, हमने एनोमलीज की बातें की, हमने फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस की बातें की, टेक्निकल एनालिसिस की बातें की, बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स, क्यों लोग इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, ये सब चीज़ें हमने बातें की मार्केटेबल सिक्योरिटीज में. लेकिन there are other alternatives as well to the market. You can invest in other non-marketable financial assets as well. So, marketable भी और non-marketable भी किसी भी फॉर्म में आप इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कर सकते हैं. अब ये non-marketable financial assets are commonly owned by individuals and they represent direct exchange of claims between issuer and investor. Direct है क्योंकि by name है, non-marketable इसलिए usually very liquid और easy to convert cash. In one of the previous lectures मैंने बताया था cashable, जब हम कैश फ्लोज की और बैलेंस शीट की बात कर रहे थे तो हमने ऐसे इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की बात भी की थी जो जल्दी, क्विकली, कन्वीनियंटली नॉन कैश से कैश में कन्वर्ट हो जाती. and then they are used as assets in finding out what is the value of a company. इसमें मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दिया था पैसा जो आपका सेविंग अकाउंट्स में पड़ा हुआ है, इसमें मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दिया था बॉन्ड्स में जो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की हैं या CODs सर्टिफिकेट्स ऑफ डिपॉजिट्स, और मैंने बात की थी मनी मार्केट के जो डिपॉजिट अकाउंट्स है, तो these are quickly convertible into cash. They're very liquid. People tend to invest in this non-marketable form of financial assets, but these are assets that are in your name. Only you can cash them. They're not like currency notes. Bearer, जो भी चाहे यूज कर ले. ये वो चीजें हैं, ये वो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं जो आपने बखुद यूज कर सकते हैं, या you have to cash them yourself. You can't just give them to somebody else and have them cash, because in your name, they're bearing your name. These are technically non-marketable securities, but are very liquid and are used as collateral, not a big issue, plus convertible very easily. जिसमें मैंने नाम अभी आपको बताए हैं. And if you recollect your memories, we talked about savings accounts, we talked about bonds, we talked about certificates of investments or certificates of deposits. मनी मार्केट डिपॉजिट्स के बारे में बात की. नाउ मनी मार्केट सिक्योरिटीज के अंदर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स या अल्टरनेटिव इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की बातें कर रहा हूं मैं आपसे इस वक्त, क्योंकि हमने बेइंतहा बातें की हैं कैपिटल मार्केट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स की, बट मनी मार्केट की नहीं बात की, फ्यूचर्स की नहीं बात की, डेरिवेटिव्स की बात नहीं की, ऑप्शंस की बात नहीं की. सो आई नीडेड टू गेट यू इन द लूप एंड फाइंड आउट व्हाट यू मस्ट नो अबाउट मनी मार्केट सिक्योरिटी. ये मार्केटेबल money market securities are marketable, and these are claims are negotiable or saleable in the market. Very liquid, very marketable, very negotiable and very saleable. ये money market की कुछ traits है. ये हैं भी short term. Remember, capital markets was for the long term, money market for the short term, but very liquid like the stock market, with relatively low risk debt instruments. Safe हैं. फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस में आपकी इन्वेस्टमेंट है, डिपॉजिट्स हैं, सेफ हैं, रिटर्न जरूर कम है लेकिन सेफ हैं, और दीज आर इशूड बाय गवर्नमेंट्स एंड प्राइवेट फर्म्स. यानी कि कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में भी आपको मनी मार्केट के इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स मिल जाएंगे. मैं बताता हूं आपको कौन कौन से बेइंतहा हैं. और कंपनीज जो लिस्टेड हैं स्टॉक एक्सचेंज पे, वो अपने कमर्शियल पेपर्स इशू करते हैं टू बोरो फंड्स. एग्जाम्पल, what are the examples of the money markets? Money market mutual funds, T-bills जिसे आप ट्रेजरी बिल कहते हैं, जो आपके सेंट्रल बैंक, जो स्टेट बैंक्स ऑक्शन करते हैं. कमर्शियल पेपर्स, आपका सेंट्रल बैंक, किसी भी मुल्क का सेंट्रल बैंक या स्टेट बैंक जो है, इट्स द बिगेस्ट बोरोअर एंड लेंडर ऑफ मनीज एट एनी गिवन टाइम. T-bill ऑक्शनिंग होती है, उसमें ऑक्शन की प्राइसेस चेंज होती हैं, and these auction prices, these interest rate hikes and these discount prices, ये जो discount rates होते हैं, ये determine करते हैं आपकी stock market की movement को भी. Remember, money market is separate, stock market is separate, but they complement each other. We talked about at one stage that interest rates affect stock market movements. So when we talked about stock market movements, we talked about interest rates. अब interest rates stock market के नहीं होते, interest rates applicable होते हैं money market में. तो discount rate में hike और interest rate में hike affect करते हैं आपकी capital market की movements. तो जब मैंने आपको बताई थी alternative investment opportunities की, तो अभी मैंने आपसे की मनी मार्केट अपॉर्चुनिटी की. और इसी तरह जैसे मनी मार्केट मार्केटेबल है, हमारी कैपिटल मार्केट सिक्योरिटीज भी ऑब्वियसली आर मार्केटेबल. फर्क क्या है कि मनी मार्केट प्रोडक्ट्स आर मार्केटेबल एंड आर ऑफ शॉर्ट टर्म, बट कैपिटल मार्केट सिक्योरिटीज आर मार्केटेबल बट विद मैच्योरिटीज ग्रेटर देन 1 year. ये बेसिक फर्क है मनी मार्केट में इन्वेस्टमेंट्स का और कैपिटल मार्केट long term. Don't confuse trading in stock markets with investments in stock market. essentially speaking, capital markets are there for the long term. And did I forget to tell you? I did not. In almost every other lecture, I tell you investments in stock markets are more risky than investments in money markets. But there's more profitability in capital markets than in money markets. Obviously, more risk, more gain. So, in capital markets, in fixed income securities, there is a specified, predetermined payment schedule. You already know when the maturity date is going to be and what you're going to get over and above your principal amounts that have been invested. So these dates of amounts of interest and principal payments are known in advance. That is the difference between capital markets and money market investments. Short term and long term, less risky, more risky, no determined rate and predetermined rate. These are the traits and differences of money market marketable investments and capital market marketable investments. The common factors are that they are both marketable, they're both liquid, and that's it. That is where the divide begins. Then you have short-term investments and long-term investments. Then you have determinations of risk and more risk or less risk and more risk. Predetermined dates of maturity and uncertain dates of maturity. These are the traits of capital market securities and money market securities. Now, while we were talking about marketable securities, we were talking about money markets, we were talking about capital markets. We never ever talked about the bond market. So I'll just touch the bond market right now, and then we'll talk about detailed bond markets later. So bond markets are very much part of the capital market, of the financial markets, and these secondary bond markets are primarily an over-the-counter network of dealings. If we refer to our book, then the New York Stock Exchange features an automated bond system to execute orders similar to the SuperDot and the InstiNet used for stock market operations. Like them, the bond market is also traded on an automated over-the-counter computerized system, mostly corporate bonds, and these are actually very thinly traded, but traded on the automated board. In the bond markets, you also have treasury products and agency bonds. So you have treasury and agency bonds actively traded in the dealers market at the New York Stock Exchange and in Nasdaq as well. So in the treasuries, remember, treasury would be indicative of the supreme government departments, in which you have municipal bonds, local government bonds, city bonds, town bonds, but these are less actively traded. हमारे यहाँ भी रिवाज नहीं है कैपिटल हमारी जो गवर्नमेंट्स हैं, local bodies हैं, provinces हैं, cities हैं, nobody can stop them from, getting in money from the public by issuing bonds for development. But the culture is still not there. But internationally, in developed countries, it is very common to find towns, districts, divisions, cities, municipal corporations issuing papers, commercial papers, which were marketable, or long-term papers or short-term papers to raise capital for the progress of the borough or the city or the district or the government or the town, whatever. The bond markets can be, secondary bond markets can be traded automatically on the New York Stock Exchange, can be treasury and agency bonds. There can be a number of ways that you can get involved into the bond market. Obviously, remember, when we're talking about bonds, we're talking about the characteristics of bonds. Characteristics of bonds would be where a buyer of a newly issued coupon bond is lending money. Remember, when you're buying bonds, you're lending money to somebody who's issuing bonds. So, you're lending money to the issuer of the bond who agrees to repay principal amount plus an interest on the amount that the issuer has borrowed from you. So borrowers are lenders of money to the bond issuers. We have said it before, we say it again, bonds are fixed income securities. You have a precise, predetermined percentage that you're going to be getting whenever you're going to buy a bond. Now, you already, I mentioned it in the previous slides as well, you know what you're going to get as interest. You know when you'll get your principal amounts back. If, it's a big if you sell it before the maturity date, then it will depend on interest rates at that particular time. Now, if you had a bond that was maybe for 1 year or maybe 5 years, not being able to, ride out the entire time, maybe you need cash, you've got a better opportunity, then instead of waiting for the entire period for the bond to mature, you can sell it before. When you sell it before, you have to decide and find out what is exactly the going rate of interest at that particular time, which could be, obviously be maybe less than what you would be expecting to the bond to pay you on maturity. Because all this is worked out in precise precision detail, obviously, since you're jumping out of the system, there's sometimes a penalty that you have to pay and maybe forego period of payment, whatever is decided between you and the issuer of the bond. ये वैसे मनी मार्केट में भी ऐसे होता है कि अगर आपने फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट कराया है अपने बैंक में for a certain percentage and then you for some reason plan to disband your original plan of investing for a longer period and then you want to cash it in, then the rules that were applicable, the procedures of investment details that were applicable for a longer time are then overlooked and the current going rate is then paid, which is obviously very little. So while we were talking about bonds, we need to be understanding more characteristics of bonds. Generally speaking, prices are quoted as a percentage of par value. Percentage of the par value. This is the normal procedure of quoting bond price. And another characteristic is that bond buyers must pay the price of the bond plus accrued interest. The original price, the par value of the price of the bond, plus any accrued interest since last semi-annual interest payments. जब तक तो payments हो चुकी हुई हैं, that's fine. But if you're in the middle of time frame where in a little while later you will be able to get more interest, then you have to pay the accrued interest since last semi-annual interest payments. These prices are quoted without accrued interest, remember, but that doesn't mean that you do not have an obligation to pay the accrued interest. Because you're getting into an involvement with somebody on a current date, that doesn't mean that whatever you forgone will not be borne by you. So you're responsible for paying out any accrued interest. Now, two terms that are used as part of bonds is a premium payment or a discount payment. A premium would be amount above the par value and a discount would be an amount below the par value. So you could be buying or selling a bond at a premium to the par value, or you could be selling or buying a bond at a discount of the par value depending on the worth of the bond. Now, if most payments have to be made, maybe you may be looking at a bond with a premium to be paid on because you'll get all the benefits of the bond. On the other hand, if most of the payments have been made, maybe you'll get it at a discount. It all depends on what sort of terms and conditions are coming with the bond. There has been, over a period of time, there has come up a lot of innovation and improvement in bonds. And new, imaginative, exciting innovations have come up with bonds, and the features of a standard, typical, run-of-the-mill bond has changed dramatically. One of them is a zero coupon bond. What is somebody going to do with a zero coupon bond if he's not going to get any interest on the principal? Of what the fun is it going to be investing in a zero coupon bond? But you're wrong there. There's a lot of benefit in investing in zero coupon bond as well, because why? If you're not getting any interest on a zero coupon bond, as the name is mentioning, it means you will get it at a discount at par value of the bond. You'll be able to get a bonus as far as discount values are concerned. So if somebody is selling a bond at 100 rupees, maybe you can get it for 92, 93 rupees, and that is the discount. And then at maturity, you'll get the face value. So these zero coupon bonds are sold at a discount and redeemed for face value at maturity. So it works the other way. Either you can get an interest on a bond, or you can get a discount. So that is what we were talking about in the previous slide about premiums and discounts. Now, while we're talking about zero coupon bonds, we're locking in a fixed rate of return. Innovation in the zero coupon bond, a characteristic of the zero coupon bond is that it locks in a fixed rate of return. That is one of the significant characteristics of a zero coupon bond. It eliminates reinvestment rate risk. When you lock in the rate of return, it eliminates risk factors involved in reinvestments. It also responds sharply to interest rates. Now, since no premium has been paid, and since no interest has to be paid on the bonds, the only thing that will affect these bonds is that it reacts, it responds sharply to interest rates. Because that will determine what the value of your bond is going to be, because it's going to be the par value. And obviously, if there is a rate of interest hike, you'll find that that is going to affect prices at zero coupon bond levels. Now, besides these, there are other major types of bonds. One of the bonds that are commonly invested into, with the risk factor being at a minimum, are bonds issued by governments. So you may land up, while talking about academically, about federal government securities. Federal government securities would commonly be treasury bonds. T-bills are the bills commonly referred to, but we're actually talking about treasury bonds. And since treasury is the name assigned to the government, that is why you can name it government secured federal securities bond. You could also have the very popular Ginnie Maes. Ginnie Maes are federal agency securities. The Ginnie Maes or GNMAs are Government National Mortgage Association bonds. GNMA stands for the Federal U.S. Government National Mortgage Association bonds or securities. The Ginnie Maes are very popular. T-bonds are very popular, and there are also federally sponsored mortgage bonds. Like Ginnie Maes, you have FNMAs, which are Federal National Mortgage Association bonds. So you have GNMAs and FNMAs, the Government National Mortgage Association bonds and the Federal National Mortgage Association bonds. And then I previously mentioned at a lower level, you could have municipal bonds. Municipal securities are another product that you could be looking at. And then you have general obligation bonds or revenue bonds. Anything by which you can give a comfort level to the investors, and then you can talk about investments in government-sponsored bonds. People are very comfortable investing in bonds that have been issued by governments. Since investments is about risky and non-risky marketable and non-marketable products, people feel comfortable. People feel comfortable when it is all about secure investment. And people get security from investing in government-backed, government-sponsored products. While I was talking about bonds and while I was talking about your zero coupon bonds and bonds on premiums and discounts and government bonds, we forgot to talk all about corporate bonds. I, of course, did make a passing remark that companies may issue bonds as well. Companies do issue shares, but they can also issue bonds. So, we've got an option to invest in government bonds and an option to invest in corporate bonds, depending on our or your comfort level by investing in money market products. So, corporate bonds can also be issued, and these are usually unsecured debts maturing in maybe 20 to 40 years and paying semi-annual interest callable values. You can expect a 20 to 40-year unsecured debt product paying out semi-annually on the principal amount with a predetermined profitability on it. These are callable bonds. These give the issuer, remember, you are the lender of the money. In this case, the callable bonds give the issuer the right to repay the debt prior to maturity. Now, these callable bonds can prematurely disband themselves by paying you off your principal amount and the premium determined on that if they think there is no point in, lingering on or stretching the original planned out way for investments. So, these are callable bonds giving the issuers the right. On the other hand, convertible bonds may be exchanged for another asset. Convertible bonds is another option that you can think that they will be exchanged for another asset at the owner's discretion once again. This would be different from a callable bond. Convertible bond can be converted into equity stocks as well. So, bonds are convertible, bonds are callable, but bonds are secure, safe, and of course predetermined payout procedures are adopted. Of course, if you look at the government bonds and you look at the corporate bonds, there is a chance that the corporation might default on payments. There is just the odd chance that corporate entity might not be in a position because of profitabilities to be able to pay you back your principal amounts and premiums as well. There is just a possibility. But then you can say that for governments as well. You've got to understand all this through what? You have indices to evaluate your investments in the equity market. You also have bond ratings to find out whether the bonds are good or bad, or the bonds are very good or just good. So you can have ratings for bonds as well. Now, these are rates relative to the profitability and probability of defaulting and paying out. So, these are important for you to understand. You must find out how much or how little there is a chance for a bond to or a corporation or government to default. One other way is to find out from other rating agencies who will evaluate bonds. You have number of organizations. Once again, the same name comes up. You have the S&P. We had the S&P 500 as an index, and you have the S&P's corporations research and evaluation methodology. Internationally, they're very recognized. The Standard & Poor and Moody's. The Moody's Investor Service and Standard & Poor Corporation are international, more so focused on international, sovereign, local, governmental ratings on which you are able to evaluate. So these rating firms perform the credit analysis for the investor. You get a benefit of these ratings. आपको पता चल जाएगा कि ये एक ऐसा बॉन्ड है जिसमें आप इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं कि अवॉइड कर सकते हैं. तो ratings help. The emphasis is on what? The emphasis is on issuer's relative probability of default. इसमें इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि हमने कैपिटल गेन्स के बारे में देख रहे हैं, हम इनकम सप्लीमेंट के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. तो इसमें इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ क्या है, इसमें जो स्टॉक मार्केट और इसमें फ़र्क है, उसमें आपने देखना है ग्रोथ ऑफ द स्टॉक, whether there is going to be an improvement in the price of this. Bonds में आपने देखना होता है relativity to the probability of default, कि क्या आपको आपके पैसे वापस मिल जाएंगे कि नहीं. उसके लिए रेटिंग एजेंसीज की रेटिंग्स को देखा जाता है. बॉन्ड रेटिंग, these are investment grade ratings of securities. इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड सिक्योरिटीज हैं कि नहीं हैं. तो जब हम इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड सिक्योरिटीज को बात करेंगे तो हम बात करेंगे उन बॉन्ड्स की जिनकी बहुत अच्छी रेटिंग्स हैं, जिसको हम कहेंगे ट्रिपल ए रेटिंग, which would be the highest possible rating for a bond would be a triple A rating. In descending order, a double A rating would also be investment grade security. So would an A way. So would be a triple B. So triple B or A or a double A or a triple A would be investable security. Typically, institutional investors are confined to bonds in these four categories: the triple A, the double A, the single A, and triple B bond ratings. And institutional investments focuses on these ratings. On the other hand, you will also have speculative categories. Speculative securities कौन सी होंगी? इसमें जो ratings होंगी वहाँ तो ट्रिपल बी तक था, उससे नीचे डबल बी, सिंगल बी, ट्रिपल सी, डबल सी और सी, ये स्पेकुलेटिव रेटिंग्स होंगी. स्पेकुलेटिव और इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड रेटिंग्स में ये फर्क है, और इसमें कुछ अनसर्टेनिटीज होंगी, अनसर्टेनिटी एंड मे बी प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ डिफॉल्टिंग. सी रेटेड बॉन्ड्स हैं, ये शायद पेमेंट्स ना कर सकती हों. So forget about C, forget about triple C, forget about B and the double B. Focus on triple A investments, focus on triple B investments and investments falling between the two, which would be double A and a single A. These would be safe, sound, solid, secure securities that you would find comfort investing into. And you would be able to then reap the benefits of their ability to pay the premium as well as the principal amount. जाहिर है ये डिपेंड करेगा उसके अंडरलाइंग कंपनी पे, ये डिपेंड करेगा उस कॉरपोरेशन पे जिसने ये इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड सिक्योरिटीज इशू की हैं in the form of a bond. Once again, a bond is something that you can invest in on a fixed return basis, predetermined at the time of investment. यहाँ पे एक वर्ड इंपॉर्टेंट है जो मैं आपसे शेयर करना चाहूँगा, and that is securitization. And securitization is derived from the word securities. And what is this? Securitization is transformation of illiquid, risky individual loans into asset-backed securities. It is the transformation, once again, of illiquid, risky individual loans into asset-backed securities. जिन्हीं में इसकी एक दफ़ा फिर बात करता हूँ, इसमें गवर्नमेंट नेशनल मॉर्गेज एसोसिएशन की लोन, मार्केटेबल सिक्योरिटीज बैक्ड बाय ऑटो लोन्स, मार्केटेबल सिक्योरिटीज क्रेडिट कार्ड रिसीवेबल्स, स्मॉल बिजनेस लोन्स, लीजेस, ये सारी सिक्योरिटाइजेशन का हिस्सा है. इसमें हाई यील्ड प्रोडक्ट्स, हाई यील्ड सिक्योरिटीज, शॉर्ट मैच्योरिटीज वाली सिक्योरिटीज, इन्वेस्टमेंट ग्रेड रेटिंग वाली सिक्योरिटीज, सारी ही then will become part of securitization. Illiquid and risky से transform होना into liquid and non-risky या less risky products. ये process है securitization का, जिसमें हम non-marketable form को transform करते हैं into a marketable form. And by making them marketable, you also make them securer and less riskier. So securitization helps in using this procedure and securing your investment grade potential products and then having a peace of mind in what to invest in and get out from non-investable or risk-free products. Securitization इस चीज़ में help करता है. अब जब हम bonds की, securitization की, marketable चीज़ों की बातें कर रहे हैं तो equity securities की भी ज़रा सी mention कर दूँ. Just to remind you, refresh you कि equities हैं क्या? They denote an ownership stake or an ownership interest in a corporation. जब हम equity securities की बात करते हैं तो मैं ये इसमें mention करना ज़रूरी समझता हूँ कि हम कोशिश करेंगे focus करने की listed companies की तरफ. So, an equity investment stake also denotes ownership interest in management, at least in principle. It also focuses on the aspect equity securities में voting rights भी हैं आप. तो voting rights के हवाले से जब हम बात करेंगे तो we must understand that principally it is important to understand that votes देते हैं आप for any management decisions. You do that when? You do that in a general body meeting. And one vote, one share की एक है और इसमें लोग proxies भी लेते हैं to contest elections at the board level. So even a common stockholder can actually enter the board through votings and proxies depending on how many shares they have or how many proxies they have. Another thing, an interest in equity securities also denotes limited liability, meaning that your responsibility is going to be up till the level of your investments in the corporation, and you will lose as much if the corporation fails or should the corporation go bankrupt. So it denotes limited liability, it denotes control over management, and it denotes an ownership interest in the corporation. Maybe that is one of the reasons people shy away from raising capital at the equity markets, because of the stakes that will be shared by people you don't know. This was common stock, which is a little different from preferred stocks. Just to refresh your minds once again, preferred stocks are more like bonds. So would it be bad to call a preferred stock a hybrid security? No, it would be right to call preferred stock a hybrid security because it has features of both debt and equity market products. One time it is got the features of a stock. On the other hand, it has also got features of a bond. So this would be a hybrid security. It is a stock but with a fixed rate of return. So preferred stocks can be also be invested in. Also, preferred stockholders are paid prior to the common stockholders. Zahir name be preferred hai. So agar in case of a chaos, common shareholders being common stay at the back end of the line. Preferred stockholders have first right to being paid. So preferred stocks can be invested into as well. Dividends known hai, fixed hai in advance, and then you may be looking at a cumulative interest if dividends are missed. Agar aapne ye zehn mein rakhna hai, decide hua agar payments miss hoti hain ya skip hoti hain, that doesn't mean कि आपको dividends नहीं मिलेंगे. They'll just be adding up eventually. You'll get paid for your dividends on the preferred stock. Often, preferred stock may be convertible into common stock. Hybrid security की बात की थी, तो ये preferred stock यानी कि bond से common stock के features में easily convert भी हो सकते हैं. It happens कि जिन लोगों ने, जिन issuers ने, जिन corporations ने preferred stock issue किए हैं, finally decide let this be part of the common equity stake, and then they will be focused on as being common shareholders and they will get all the facilities of a common shareholder. अब preferred stock में single fixed dividend payout potential भी है और variable भी हो सकता है depending on the issuer of the preferred stock. हो सकता है वो कहें कि भाई इतना अरसा हम आपको ये परसेंटेज देंगे और इतने अरसे आपको हम ये परसेंट predetermined. Obviously, if that is acceptable to person who's buying the bond, you'll be able to get a variable difference or a variable dividend product. Common stock में ऐसे तो है ही, variable होता ही है, उसमें तो fixed है ही कुछ नहीं. So, talking about preferential claiming and common stock claiming, common stockholders are residual claimants on income and assets. जब बचा कुचा होगा वो common stockholder. But let's not be pessimistic. Let's not always look at the darker side. We're not investing in companies that are going to bankrupt. We're trying to invest in companies that will flourish. So let's be optimistic. इतनी जल्दी नहीं companies bankrupt होती. So ये एक academic गुफ्तगू है. We should know the bad and the good aspects of it. So 100 में से अगर आपकी एक इन्वेस्टमेंट खराब हो जाती है, it's not a big deal, but फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस हमने किया हुआ है, टेक्निकल एनालिसिस हुआ, होपफुली विल बी अवॉइडिंग सच कंपनीज, आई एम श्योर. पार वैल्यू जो स्टॉक्स की है वो फेस वैल्यू है ना, इसकी कोई ऐसी सिग्निफिकेंस नहीं है क्योंकि पार वैल्यूज के ऊपर लेने बेचने के लिए तो हमने स्टॉक मार्केट में इन्वेस्टमेंट्स नहीं करनी. हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करनी हैं कैपिटल गेन के लिए, हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करनी हैं अपनी इनकम को सप्लीमेंट करने के लिए, हमने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करनी है उस एक्साइटमेंट के लिए जो स्टॉक मार्केट में वॉलेटिलिटी के जरिए हमें मिलती है. तो फेस वैल्यू ठीक है, आपको इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करने के लिए अब आपको एक वैल्यू मिल जाती है जिसके ऊपर आप इन्वेस्टमेंट कर देते हैं, लेकिन जैसे इंडेक्स है इसी तरह जो पार वैल्यू है उसके ऊपर भी आपको फोकस नहीं, आपने देखना है उससे ज़्यादा कितनी. अचानक मुझे याद आया कि हमने जब फंडामेंटल्स की बात की थी तो इसमें बुक वैल्यू का जो है, बुक वैल्यू को हम इसकी अकाउंटिंग प्रोसीजर्स के लिए लेते हैं और पार वैल्यू को इनसिग्निफिकेंट इकोनॉमिक वैल्यू के लिए लेते हैं. लेकिन बुक वैल्यू भी आपको बहुत ज़्यादा गाइड करता है और बुक वैल्यूज़ आपको हेल्प करती हैं देखने के लिए कि भाई इस स्टॉक में या इस कंपनी में कितनी जान है. नाउ असल इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ क्या है? इट्स नॉट द बुक वैल्यू, इट्स नॉट द पार वैल्यू, इट्स नॉट द डिस्काउंट वैल्यू, इट्स नॉट द प्रीमियम वैल्यू, इट इज़ द मार्केट वैल्यू. इस वक्त currently at any given time, what is the market value of share? So market value is important. It is the value at which you'll be able to buy or sell your share. जो एक चीज मैं फाइनली आपको यहाँ पे ऐड और कर दूं कि कॉमन स्टॉक्स में डिविडेंड्स का बहुत ज्यादा सिग्निफिकेंट पार्ट होता है एंड दीज आर कैश पेमेंट्स टू द शेयर होल्डर्स. इसी के लिए तो हम इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कर रहे हैं. ओके चलो, इसी के लिए नहीं, one of the features जिसके लिए हम इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कर रहे हैं स्टॉक मार्केट, one of the features. The other bigger feature is capital gain, which is much bigger. So dividends are the cash payments made to shareholders. और डिविडेंड्स के साथ हमने एक दफा बात की थी डिविडेंड यील्ड की. तो डिविडेंड यील्ड की जब हमने बात की तो हमने बात की थी कि ये एक इनकम कंपोनेंट है डिविडेंड रिटर्न का, और पे आउट रेशियो से हम अंदाजा करते हैं कि डिविडेंड्स का अर्निंग उस कंपनीज की जो है उसके साथ से क्या पे आउट रेशियो है. तो डिविडेंड पे रेशियोज, डिविडेंड यील्ड, पे आउट रेशियो सारी इंपॉर्टेंट. और हमने थोड़ी सी बातें की थी डिक्लेरेशन डेट की. वो क्या थी कि जिसपे बोर्ड ने अनाउंस किया क्या अर्निंग्स हैं और बोर्ड ने अनाउंस किया हम आपको डिविडेंड क्या देंगे. और इसके साथ हमने बात की थी एक्स डिविडेंड डेट की, जिसमें एक कट ऑफ डेट है विद द कंपनी कि जिसमें हमें पता चल जाता है कि यहाँ तक जिन लोगों के पास शेयर की ओनरशिप है उन्हें डिविडेंड्स मिलेंगे, और जो उस डेट के बाद हैं, जो एक्स डिविडेंड डेट के बाद जो बाय करेगा वो एंटाइटल नहीं होंगे. ये सारा कुछ होल्डर ऑफ रिकॉर्ड के हवाले से वो हम देख लेते हैं कि भाई किसको पेमेंट्स मिलनी है, किसको पेमेंट्स नहीं मिलनी है, और पेमेंट डेट क्या होगी, कब आपको पेमेंट मिलेगी. तो ये कॉमन स्टॉक के हवाले से एक इम्पॉर्टेंट सेगमेंट था जो मैं आपको बताना चाह रहा था कि पेमेंट्स होती कैसे हैं और इसमें सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है कॉमन स्टॉक में अनफॉर्चुनेटली बीइंग पेसिमिस्टिक कि प्रेफर्ड स्टॉक को क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, बट देन प्लीज़ कीप इन माइंड प्रेफर्ड स्टॉक के अंदर आपको फिनोमिनल गेन्स नहीं होंगे, उसके अंदर एक फिक्स्ड रिटर्न आपको मिलना है, जैसे कि बॉन्ड्स पे। बॉन्ड्स के अंदर भी कोई फिनोमिनल गेन्स नहीं हो सकता, यह सिक्योरिटी है। तो बॉन्ड्स किसी भी किस्म के हो सकते हैं, वो मैंने बताया है पहले, गवर्नमेंट के हैं या फेडरेशन के हैं या बैंक्स के हैं या कॉरपोरेशंस के हैं, गेन्स आपको लिमिटेड हैं, सिक्योरिटीज रूल। कॉमन स्टॉक्स में ऑन दी अदर हैंड वो आपको डिविडेंड्स भी मिलेंगे, आपको कैपिटल गेन भी मिलेगा, आपको बेनिफिट ऑफ फ्लरिशिंग ऑफ द कंपनी भी मिलेगी, और यू विल बी एबल टू गो इनटू अ प्रोडक्ट that will actually give you a lot of return as far as capital gains are concerned. रिस्क को जहन में रखें आप कि रिस्क है कॉमन स्टॉक्स। और जब हमने कॉमन स्टॉक्स की बात की थी तो हमने उसमें अर्निंग पर शेयर्स को भी देखना है। जब हमने अर्निंग पर शेयर्स को देखना है तो हमने डिविडेंड्स को देखना है। जब हमने डिविडेंड्स को देखना है तो हमने डिविडेंड यील्ड को देखना है। और जब हमने डिविडेंड यील्ड को देखना है तो हमने डिविडेंड पे आउट रेशो को भी देखना है। जब हम डिविडेंड पे आउट रेशोज़ को देख रहे हैं तो हमने उसकी प्राइस अर्निंग रेशोज़ को भी देखना है, हमने उसकी कैपेसिटी देखना है, कैसे ग्रोथ है और कॉन्फिडेंस लेवल क्या है इन्वेस्टर्स का। तो पी रेशोज़ की मैंने आपसे बात की थी तो मैंने कहा था ज़्यादा पी रेशो होगा तो इसका मतलब इन्वेस्टर कॉन्फिडेंस ज़्यादा है। इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि अगर कम पी रेशो है तो उसमें कोई सिग्निफिकेंट इन्वेस्टमेंट्स नहीं हो रही। जहन में रखें, पी रेशोज़ विल बी ऑफ एक्सट्रीम बेनिफिट टू यू। जब भी कॉमन स्टॉक्स की बात होगी, अर्निंग पर शेयर्स पे फोकस करें और पीई रेशियोज पे फोकस करें। थैंक यू वेरी मच।